Hey everybody, Guildmaster Dan here. Obviously this week we're not going to be doing a video because we are under a week away, 6 days away from the Penn Ohio Roleplay-a-thon, which you may recall from my second vlog video. Um, well, I just wanted to cover a couple of things real quick and, just give you guys a quick vlog. So again, you're not hung out to dry, you get something this week. First, let me stick with channel stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed the Final Fantasy Let's Play. I know I enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed prattling for a bit. It was kind of fun. But I think I'm going to take a break from Final Fantasy kind of while I level up the Light Warriors to go on the next adventure. And in the meantime, I think I'm going to play something a little bit more active. But it is a classic it is a game that a lot of people consider a classic. So I think you guys will be excited. But be looking for that. And I think that's kind of it for show stuff. So okay, well that's it for the channel stuff. The Penn Ohio Roleplay-a-thon, like I mentioned, is going to be this coming Saturday, November 23rd, starting at 10 a.m., going until 10 a.m. on Sunday, November 24th. At any time period during there, you will be able to go to my Twitch or my Twitch.tv channel and watch my team play. And if you feel so inclined, you'll be able to go to our campaign page and donate directly to helping Charity Water bring clean drinking water to the rural villages in the Orissa province in India, which I highly encourage you to do. It is a great cause, and you will be helping people because 100% of the proceeds go towards helping those people. Also, I have an update for that. One of our sponsors, All American Cards and Comics, has actually donated a couple more prizes that are being added to the prize bundle, or the main prize bundle anyway. And that it consists of Mage: The Awakening, another World of Darkness RPG about sorcerers, and also 4 leather dice bags. And you'll be able to get those if you raise the most money, or I don't know, maybe I'll put the dice bags in the second one. I don't know. These kind of I just suddenly acquired these, so I apologize. I have not assigned them to one of the bundles yet, but they will be in the bundles. They're just additional prizes for you to get. Actually, there were 2 of the Mage Awakening, so there's a lot of RPG books in that main bundle. But anyway, I thought just for fun, since we're going to be streaming from my Twitch TV channel, I thought it might be fun to introduce you guys a little bit to the world that my players are going to be running in. I'm going to be running Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. I prefer 2nd edition, but I'm not comfortable running it yet. I have all the books, but I've never ran it before, so I'm not quite comfortable running that yet. And I also like Pathfinder, but I don't have that core rulebook, so I'm aiming to win one by raising the most money here. But in my D&D world, because I don't use one of the set worlds, I used one of my own creation, and I thought I'd introduce it to you guys real quick. That might be a fun way, kind of like a preview for the game. There are children outside. Anyway, so the gist are they are adventuring in the world of Sar, which is this world that the oldest living things are dragons and have been the dominant race of the world since time immemorial. And there are 2 primary continents: one of Jermine, one of Tiam. Oh, I'm sorry, no, that's wrong. One's known as Jermine, the other one's known as Ruza. Jermine was ruled over by the scaled races of Bahamut, while Rusa was ruled over the scaled races of Tiamat. And the world was always embroiled in battle between the 2 gods, Tiamat being the god of good, nature, and light, and Tiamat being the god of darkness, evil, and power. and the two were always at war with each other. Their races always clashing, until one day a primate race appeared on the continent of Germane, known as the Elves, and they just kind of appeared out of nowhere. And when the scaled races of Bahamut discovered them, they actually had themselves a nice little empire off in the wilderness, they had stayed in seclusion. And excuse me. But for reasons lost to time, these elves eventually struck out and went to war with the scaled races around them. This war lasted for hundreds of years, as the elves were very magically adept, but they could not match the numbers of the scaled races. Eventually, the warrior houses of the Elven Empire just grew tired of their brothers and sisters being slaughtered in battle. So they studied dark magics. They looked into the magics of Tiamat as well as their own magics, and discovered a way, and discovered a spell, a ritual that once it was cast, killed all scaled races on the continent of Germane. They all died off instantly. Fortunately, that spell has never been, or has been lost to time and has never been able to been reproduced. But for their genocide, the elves, or rather the ruling magic, or the ruling mage class of the elves, cast out their warrior class as well, essentially as abominations. You know, they did a terrible thing. They committed utter genocide. And so they cast them out, and the warrior houses were exiled to the archipelago of Drow, which is off the southern coast of Germane. While there, their skin darkened and their hair lightened, and they took on the name of their took on the name of their archipelago. They became the Drow, or the Dark Elves. After this time, the Elven Empire spread out. You know, they had lots of infrastructure to take advantage of from the scaled races, so they kind of spread out quickly and, you know, began to prosper again. Well, over time, another primate race appeared known as the dwarves. And the dwarves were very industrious and very strong. And even though, you know, they carved out their own little empire in the mountains, it wasn't long before they clashed with the elves. Pardon me. Now this war, much like the last, became very embroiled, very entrenched. Didn't look like there was an end in sight, especially when the halflings appeared and became soldiers for the dwarves. Halflings in my world are very tied to dwarves because they're very hedonistic and very active. And while the dwarves are very industrious and corporate, so they often use the halflings make perfect consumers and employees for the dwarves. Well, you know, the dwarves make, you know, great marks, you know, for conning halflings. Anyway, so dwarves and elves are not dwarves. Dwarves and halflings are really tied together. Anyway, they showed up, and the war wasn't looking like it was going to end anytime soon. So the Elven Empire decided they were going to try something new. And their mage class magically created a new race, taking elements from both elves and from dwarves to create a new soldier race, which became known as humans. Humans were adaptable and quick breeding. They were they were about as long-lived as dwarves in my game, about 100 years. But they could breed a lot faster than the other races, and they were very adaptable to many different environments. So they created these hordes of humans, trained them, and sent them out to fight the dwarves. And they did it. It turned the tide. They were able to win the war. When they were not strong enough to beat the dwarves, with time, they simply outpopulated them, and the war came to an end. As a reward for their good work, the humans were given their own lands to rule. However, the elves always looked down on the humans as being since they were their creators, and always expected obedience from them, even though they gave them sovereignty. This eventually would lead to the downfall of the Elven Empire, as it essentially incited treason amongst the humans. The humans ended up allying with the elves' now old enemies, the Drow, in order to overthrow the empire. And this, again, at first seemed like it was going to be another long, drawn-out war, except for with the magical power of the Drow, the numbers of the humans, and then eventually the alliance with the Dwarven Trade Confederation, they were able to crush the Elven Empire once and for all, and enslave the Elven population. Elves became slaves and eventually second-class citizens. In the world that we're in today, on Germine, there's a single continental empire, as eventually, through political machinations, the dwarves and their halflings were incorporated into the Germanian Empire underneath human rule. Humans are here. I'm going to go through and show. And I'm sorry if I used your art. I honestly don't remember where I got these from anymore because I made this a while back. But humans, you can see a little human there. They're the ruling class. Actually, I'll tell you what. We'll start at the bottom because I think it's more fun when going through the social classes in this world to start from the bottom, at least on Germine, because I did also map out all of the scaled races and their history in Ruza, but my players aren't going to be going to Ruza anytime soon. I will talk about one race that they'll be dealing with, but they're not going to be going to Ruza, so I won't cover Ruza's history. But anyway, to start with, we have. Actually, wait, we're going on the bottom, aren't we? On the very, very bottom of the social scale of just racial status, you have African. I don't need this. All right, so on the very bottom, you have half-elves. Half-elves are, they are just like in normal D&D settings. They are the offspring of a human and an elf. Well, they are the most hated and most despised race of all. Humans consider them abominations, and elves consider them blood traitors. Essentially, to both, they're a symbol of taint, and essentially, just all of the rift between humans and their creators is kind of like focused into hatred towards half elves because they're very hated. They represent all that is wrong to both races, and they often end up either having to go at their own and go live out, go become rangers out in the wilderness, or a lot of them actually switch sides over to Rusa and head over to Tiamat Dominion to serve the dragons there as spies and ambassadors. Just above them are elves, and elves are they are no longer fully enslaved. They are more second-class citizens. At this point in the Germanian Empire, their equivalent is think to African Americans just following the Emancipation Proclamation, right after them being freed, right after the end of the Civil War. They were technically no longer slaves, but they sure weren't being treated much better. And on top of that, slavery still existed. It was just on the down low now. And that's the same sort of situation that the elves are dealing with. Some of them work in secret, hoping to someday reclaim their lost glory, while others are just downtrodden, just trying to make it from day to day as the world literally weighs down on them. Next above them are Tyflings. Now, in my world, Tyflings are a bit different from their traditional world. Essentially, with the Tyflings, back during the last Elven War, the war between the Elven Empire and the humans and Drow, there were a lot of refugees made because of that war that ended up having to flee into the wilderness. And in that wilderness, as they mixed and mingled, made their shanty towns and whatnot that they could live away from the war in, they were found by a primordial spirit known as Druvan. Druvan is a trickster. He's essentially a trickster spirit. He is known as the trickster stag because he takes the form of a stag with a forked tongue, much like a snake. Well, Druvan came to them with promises of glory and paradise all their own, a promised land that if they could reach it, they would live happily for eternity. And when they agreed to that, he changed them into a new race, forged them all into a single new race, and charged them with finding their promised land. They were given the form of Tyflings with horns and the tail and the hooves, and he named them Tyfling because he liked the sound of the word. And ever since, the Tyflings have been traveling in bands in search of the promised land. They're very similar to gypsies or the Jews following their exile from Egypt. They are, they're typically looked on as vagabonds or unwanted. They're very often distrusted, though much like gypsy or much like the stereotypical gypsy. As they move around, they became performers so that they could make money and earn a place at least for a night for their caravan. So they're constantly traveling around, but they're also the first to be distrusted. They're considered unlucky because of their association with the trickster spirit. But other than being distrusted and having lots of nasty rumors about them, they actually don't have it that bad. They're mainly just viewed as like vagrants. But they can put on a good show from time to time. Next above them are the halflings. As I mentioned before, halflings are mainly consumers and employees for the dwarves. So technically, it's the Dwarven Forge Confederation is next. It's just that the halflings are the lower part of that confederation, and the dwarves are above them. Dwarves have fair standing in society. Dwarven rulers or politicians are typically considered of pretty high importance. It's just that they're not from the two ruling classes, which are next. But typically, they have a lot of money behind them, and they are proud of what they've accomplished. So very proud. Above them are the Drow, the dark elves that helped humans overthrow the Elven Empire, and they are very high in society. You will often see humans and Drow intermingling and marrying one another for political connections, which actually brings us to technically who's above the Drow and being half-Drow. Half-Drow being the offspring of a Drow and a human. Half-Drow are considered blessings onto whatever. They are the polar opposite of half-elves. They are considered blessings onto their houses. Sorry, my wife is claiming with her hand that I'm talking way too long. Oh, quiet. Anyway, so the half-Drow are considered boons onto their houses. They're the popular kids at school. They're the kids who were born into being well liked and well off. They are often used as like emissaries or negotiators, just because they have that initial foot in that they're considered blessed, because they're from both ruling classes or both ruling races. And of course, above them is humanity. Humans are without a doubt, the ruling and dominant species of Jermyn. They are not always kind rulers, but they are capable of benevolence rivaling what the elves thought that they used to do. They are very martial, and their quick breeding has just helped them to cement their hold. On a global scale, the Germanian Empire, and I've mentioned this before, the Germanian Empire and the Tiamic Dominion they're not at war with one another, but they are in a sort of Cold War. They're both eyeing each other from across the ocean, just knowing that there's going to be a time when both continents are at war once again. And, well, even though I'm not going to go in their history, we'll just put it this way. While the while the short-lived human, or while the short-lived primate races were going through all their battles and essentially living through their history, on the other side of the pond there, the Tiamat Dominion, with the lack of Bahamut to hold them in check, the followers of Tiamat were essentially cementing their hold on that continent. They dug in and built up their power. So when the time comes that dam does break, they're going to be ready to fly at full force at Jermine. And that's kind of like the situation that they're at in global politics right now. Is they're just like America and Russia during the Cold War. They're both eyeing each other, just waiting for that inciting event to set them both off. I already said they're not going to be going to Ruza. There is one race that they'll be dealing with a little bit that I'm going to touch on very lightly because I don't want any of my players to see this and like get a hint of what's going on. But they'll probably be dealing with the Aunty. In my game, the Aunty are also a little different. As you notice, I've kind of changed around some basic history behind some of the races. Well, the Aunty typically have, the abominations and the purebloods. The purebloods being more humanoid and appearing closer to humans. Well, I kind of flipped that in my game because of their origins. The Aunty purebloods are essentially the abominations. They're the Naga-looking creatures, and then the abominations are what the purebloods were considered in the normal game. They're the less serpentine and more humanoid species, and they're typically used as ambassadors with the other nation because the Aunty are very magically adept and use their abilities to create a race specifically for that purpose. It's not their first race that they've magically created, but both of those might come into play in this adventure. The Aunty are interesting. I won't go into their history again, like I said, but essentially think of them as they are this world's equivalent of Nazis. They're very magically advanced, and they're very tactical in thinking. Essentially they were created by a god similar to, or by a primordial spirit similar to the Tyflings. Only when they saw that the followers of Tiamat were stronger than them, they as a race turned away from their god and joined under the Tiamat Dominion. They were actually minded enough to tell their god that he's not worth their worship anymore. So they're very tactically minded and very magically adept. But there are still some followers of their original god, known as the Typhoon Spirit, which is a lung dragon that created them in his own image, really just as a way to spit on Tiamat's work. Anyway, might see them a little, but this is kind of the world that they're running around in. It's lots of fun. There's lots of social strife going on. There's lots of stuff for them to work off of. I gave every race their own unique swear word and their own unique ethnic slur, which my players seem to like those. They seem to have fun saying the funny words. But I don't know, it should be a lot of fun. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up because it's gone on a little long, but that's kind of a preview of the world that they're going to be running around in. I can't tell you a lot, but I will tell you that they are mainly going to be running around in the archipelago of Drow. So be looking forward to that Drow space, as it were. And be sure to tune in on the 23rd at any point, doesn't matter when, to come see how much fun we're having or how tired we are. I'll post the link below, and be sure to tune in. And if you feel like it, help out, because charity water is a great cause. We wouldn't be doing it otherwise. And well, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. No video next week because we're just going to be doing the live stream. So be looking for a new video 2 weeks from now. Yeah. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later. What?